Recently, I just saw a movie. Our companion brothers watched a movie together, and it's called Of Gods and Men, and it's about the true story of these 9 Cistercian monks who were living in Algeria during the Algerian Civil War in 1996. And throughout this movie, right, we're seeing this pressure happening between the military in Algeria and then kind of the Muslim terrorist population. And then this small Catholic group of men, the kind of the middle of it, who are in there as doctors taking care of the children, most of who they took care of were Muslim. And throughout this movie, it's really them deciding, as pressure is mounting, whether or not they should remain in Algeria or go back to France. And this is a true story, and there's a really beautiful scene where the superior of the Trappist monks is speaking to one of the brothers who's a doctor, and he's asking him whether or not we should leave or if we should stay and kind of put our lives at risk. And he says to him this. He says, "Brother, I'm 84 years old. I have faced Nazis. I have faced even the devil himself. I am not afraid of any terrorists. I am free." And as he stands up, the brother superior is standing in the doorway, and he says to him, "Step aside for the free man." Later that year, that man, that 84-year-old man, and 7 other of his brothers would be kidnapped and killed for staying in Algeria. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith in you? Comfortable, everything I need, us? Now, I've been asked this weekend to preach on tithing, and I know you're probably thinking, "Boo, Father Sam," right? Oh, you roll your eyes, or you might feel your conscience kind of biting at you. And can I just say, can you just lean into that? Like, if you're experiencing that, can you just lean into that? Because the Lord might be trying to tell you something in that place. And brothers and sisters, I just want to tell you this. I'm not concerned about whether or not you're giving your 10%. I don't want to sound like the old shrew from today's gospel reading, right? Like, oh, I better pay, otherwise he's going to come strike me or whatever, right? In the Greek translation, it's actually give him a black eye, which is hilarious. I don't care. I'm not concerned about how much you're tithing or whether or not you're tithing your 10%. What I'm concerned about is the freedom of your heart. That's what I'm concerned about. What has a hold of your heart and what doesn't? What am I attached to? What am I afraid to give away? In our first reading today, it comes at a really particular time within the history of Israel. This actually happens right after the parting of the Red Sea. So Israel is just freed from slavery, right? They're just set free from slavery in Egypt. And they see this incredible miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, kind of like the pews tonight, where it's like all of this is empty and then all of these people are on each side. They see this incredible miracle, and they go through the Red Sea, and they're finally free, and then what happens? This dude named Amalek and his armies like, let's tussle. And think about where Israel is at this point in history. They have no nation. They have no banners. They have no army, or barely one. And they have to fight. And God commands Moses, right, to keep his hands raised while they fight in the battle. And I love that because God is such a God of mediation. Like, he's such a God who uses other men to unfold his will, who uses us, what we have, what we are called to give, to win the battle. And I love the story of Aaron and her holding his arms up. That's precisely what all of you do for us as priests. Because sometimes I think we so often forget that we are all on mission together. Me and you are on mission together. And I'm not here, I hope you're not here just to get your Eucharist and check your box and leave. I hope you're not here for that. Because if you are, you're doing it wrong. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Will he find faith in you? Let me ask you a question. A question I think we've asked many times before, but you might be surprised by the answer. Can money buy happiness? Yeah. According to a Harvard business study, it can. They did a study throughout the world where they gave people money, and they had half of those people spend the money on themselves, and then the other half spend the money on other people. And after this study, it showed that the people who spent the money on themselves really could perceive no kind of new happiness in their life. But the people who spent money on other people actually experienced happiness. So can money buy happiness? Kind of. So long as I spend it on what I'm supposed to, or give it to whom I'm supposed to, so long as it doesn't have a hold of my heart. Now, brothers and sisters, is that the reason why we should give? No. That's not why we should give, because it makes me happy. It's a nice perk. I love it. Right? It's a cherry on top of the cake. But it's not the reason why we should give. And let me give you tonight, brothers and sisters, just four reasons why we should give, why we should tithe. 4 reasons. Number 1, it's because Jesus told us to. Easy, right? Right? Jesus says in Matthew's gospel, when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Right? He doesn't say, if you decide like you want to give. Right? He says, when you give. Almsgiving, we're told in Lent, right, to give alms, to pray, and to fast, right? And almsgiving is kind of the culmination or the combination of prayer and fasting. Right, prayer because I'm giving something to the Lord by giving it to other people. That's something that I'm doing, that I'm giving to the Lord. Prayer is something that I give to the Lord, right? In fasting, I'm denying myself in order to give something away. Right, that's what I'm doing. So number 1, we give because Jesus told us to do it. Number 2, human dignity. We believe in the human dignity. We believe in the dignity of every single human person, no matter how rich or how poor or how strong or how weak they are. We are called to see the infinite value in every single human person. As Christians, we're called to help other people just because they exist. Just because they exist. We give alms because other people matter. So number 1, because Jesus told us to. Number 2, because of the dignity of the human person. Number 3, we give out of gratitude, not out of guilt. And that's really important. We don't give out of guilt. If you're feeling guilty, don't give. Give out of gratitude. Because one of the signs, the hallmark signs, right, as we've talked about before, of a humble person is somebody who's constantly grateful for the gifts of their life. Right, who's constantly grateful for everything in their life. That's the sign of a humble person and actually the sign of a free person. right? The person who is stuck in themselves saying, like, I earned everything that I have. I did this by the sweat of my brow. That's just pride speaking, and it doesn't make me free. It attaches my identity to the things that I do. Stupid. You're not what you do. So number one, because Jesus asked us to. Number two, because of human dignity. Number three, we give out of gratitude, not out of guilt. And lastly, we come back to Jesus because it is the example of who Jesus is. Right? St. Paul says in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 8, he who was rich made himself poor for your sake. Right? Have you ever meditated on that? Like, he who was rich made himself poor for your sake, has given you everything. And so we're not just called to give out of our surplus, right? We're not just called to give out of like, well, I already have a lot of that, so I can just I can give it. We're called to give out of our substance. We're called in a particular way to a certain form of impoverishment, not to say that I have to make myself completely poor or give away everything. But if Jesus, who I am called to conform my heart to, made himself poor, then there's something to follow in that, if I'm to conform my heart to him. And brothers and sisters, like I said, I'm not concerned about how much you give. I'm not concerned about your 10%, and the church doesn't even care about your 10%. The church doesn't ask you to give 10% of your income. The church says to give what you can. I'm concerned about the freedom of your heart. And the reason why Jesus told the rich young man, you have but one thing to do. Sell everything you have and follow me. Because he was saying those things have a hold of your heart. Those things have a hold of your heart. And we're not called to live this life, as St. Boethius puts together, on the wheel of fortune, where I'm just basing my happiness on the fickleness of the material things that I have. Or one moment I'm up and then I spin the wheel and then, bankruptcy. We're not called to base our happiness on that. We're called to ground our foundation in love itself, in the person of Jesus Christ. Why does God send the Israelites to war immediately after they come out of slavery? Because he wants to show them that they can lean on him, that they can trust in him. I hear so often people tell me that I just don't see God's providence working in my life. I just don't know if God's real. I just don't know if he is, because I don't ever see him working in my life. My response is always this: how much room do you give him to work in your life? How many acts of faith do you make in your life that allows him to work? Right, we live in the richest, most comfortable society in the world, but also the most anxious and depressed society in the world. Obviously, things is not what our hearts are made for. But we're made to allow the Lord to work wonders and miracles in our life, but he's not going to force his way in. If you have control over everything in your life, if you have handle over everything in your life, it gives him no room to work. And then when things get hard, we turn to God like he's a parachute in an airplane going down, and we're like, why won't you answer me? Why don't you hear my prayers? Why don't you give me exactly what I want? Why don't you take away the suffering? And it's because we haven't built a relationship with him. And perhaps I'll just end with this. In Matthew 16, Jesus says these words, "For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Whoever hoards up everything in their life, who tries to preserve their life, will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. That's a great act of faith. That's an act of faith that we're all called to in our life. And sometimes that isn't easy, but brothers and sisters, a faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. A faith that has not been tested. Has your faith ever been tested? Good. Has there ever been difficulty? Good. Because a faith that's never been tested can't be trusted. Just look at the disciples as our Lord walked to his passion. St. Augustine says this when he converted to the church. He said, "O God, to know you is life. To serve you is freedom. To praise you is the soul's joy and delight. Guard me with the power of your grace here and in all places, now and at all times, forever." When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith in you? When the Son of Man comes, will he find in you freedom?